It is another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the two movies released on November 14th, 2008. And they're two big movies for very different reasons. One is obviously a new James Bond movie, and the other is the Best Picture winner for 2008 at the Academy Awards. We'll get to that one in just a little bit, but let's talk about the biggest new release of the weekend, which is, of course, Daniel Craig in the sequel to Casino Royale, his second James Bond film. That is, of course, Quantum of Solace. That title probably didn't help the success of this movie overall. I mean, it was a hit overall, but it wasn't the big hit I think a lot of people were expecting it to do, especially with the critics and all that. But we'll get to that in just a second. But in this film, directed by Mark Forster, it features Daniel Craig's second performance as Bond, and in here he's seeking revenge for the death of Vesper, who of course died at the end of Casino Royale, and is signed by Camila Montes, Olga Kurylenko, who is plotting revenge for the murder of her family. The trail eventually leads to wealthy businessman Dominic Green, played by Matthew Amalric, I think I'm pronouncing that right, a member of the Quantum Organization who intends to stage a coup d'etat in Bolivia to seize control of that country's water supply. Now, this is notable for a couple of reasons. One, like I said, it's the second James Bond movie with Daniel Craig, but it's the first one to continue the story from the last movie, which is something that the other movies didn't really do all that much. I mean, yeah, a lot of the James Bonds that were in there were back in other movies, but this was the first one that actually did continue a story that left off from the original film, because, we didn't really have a story where, once somebody got killed off in the last James Bond movie with Sean Connery, Roger Moore, or Timothy Dalton, or Pierce Brosnan, it's something that didn't continue into the next film. Here you have one that continues right into the next film. And so it kind of made it a big deal to have a continuing arc going on here, and that will continue with the rest of the series in general, with the rest of Daniel Craig's movies. But one of the first problems the film had to face right from the get-go was the writer's strike. And I was talking about this the year before, how the writer's strike kept a lot of high-profile movie and TV show projects in a state of flux because they couldn't get the writers to come back and fix a lot of the scripts, so they had to shoot whatever they had to work with. And a lot of the shows and movies that came out, starting with this particular fall, kind of faltered because of that. And this is the first real major movie to be affected by the writer's strike in general. And so you have this movie here that suffered a lot from when the strike was caused, and part of the big problem is that, you don't have the writers of the James Bond series to work on this because they're on the picket lines fighting for money so they had to film what they had here, and so they basically had to work with whatever Daniel Craig and director Mark Forster had to work with here. And I think it's a great approach to the story that continues to set up from Casino Royale, but that writer's strike really hampered the story big time. And you could tell that that Daniel Craig and Mark Forster had to basically write this stuff on the spot. They didn't have any other backup writers to come in and fix this movie, because it definitely shows in how the story kind of goes all over the place, the jumbling all across the board in this film. And another problem with the film, I thought, was that I felt like they were trying way too hard this time around to go for a more darker tone. This is probably the most violent Bond movie that was made at the time, and it doesn't really go into the actual story, but just to be there just for the sake of giving the film an edge to it. I mean, yeah, I was gonna say that they tried to up the game on Bond, like what happened with Batman in The Dark Knight, and of course, James Bond had new competition in Jason Bourne around this time. But don't worry, folks, the Bond films will have plenty of time to copy The Dark Knight with the next movie we'll look at, which will be the most successful one of the series. But yeah, this isn't going to be the last time James Bond copies off of somebody else in general. In fact, I've been doing it since the very beginning. I mean, Moonraker was literally made to cash in on Star Wars' success, for God's sakes. But I've been kind of negative to this film overall, but I don't hate the movie. I think it's a fine film. That's the best way to describe the movie. It's fine. Daniel Craig's still really good as Bond. The cast in here is still really good. There are some really good action sequences. The pacing does work, but it's definitely a huge knockdown compared to Casino Royale. It's just not as good as it should have been. But then again, I'll take this over the bad James Bond movies any day of the week. I'll take this over Moonraker. I'll take this over Die Another Day. It's Mark Forster. Mark Forster is a more than capable director, and it's not like the film is a complete mess overall. I just think the writer's strike really hurt it in the long run. I would have been interested to see what he would have done with another film, but hey, it meant that Sam Mendes could come out with the next movie, Skyfall, and deliver what I think is probably one of the better James Bond movies in general, which we'll get to that one in 2012, but This one, it's fine, but you definitely felt like it could have been a whole lot better had the strikes not happened. But that's Quantum of Solace for you. So let's go ahead and move on now to the year's Best Picture winner at the Academy Awards. Let's talk about Danny Boyle's Slumdog Millionaire. Quite literally the sleeper that really came out of nowhere, especially considering, this was up for the Academy Award for Best Picture, and, in a year where probably, if The Dark Knight and Wall-E had been nominated in there, chances are those films probably would have won Best Picture over this, but that does not take away from the movie itself, because it is a really good movie, where you have the story here of this young kid, Jamal Malik, played by Dev Patel in his film debut, and, he goes on to this game, this equivalent to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I mean, it is literally the same company who produces the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game show that made this movie. And he surprises everybody on the show by answering every question correctly so far, winning upwards to about, I don't know what the currency, I don't know how to pronounce the currency in India, but it's basically the equivalent of $210,000. And he's one question away from winning the grand prize of $420,000 in the U.S., but he's accused of cheating, and he recounts his life story to the police, illustrating how he was able to answer each question. And the film goes through flashbacks of how he got to this point, from his days as a 5-year-old kid all the way to getting on the show, and also trying to win the heart of his girl in this movie, played by Frida Pinto, who's really fantastic in the movie. I mean, these two are so good in this film. This is such a wonderful movie, and it just shows the range of Danny Boyle as a director. I mean, Danny Boyle, we talked about his works in the past. This is his magnum opus, man. This is definitely one of my favorite movies of his. It's such a very entertaining movie. It's an engaging love story. You do want to see Patel and Pinto get together at the end. You want to go on this journey with this guy. It reminds me a lot of The Last Emperor. Maybe that's why I got so invested in seeing The Last Emperor so much, because I saw a lot of similar vibes to Slumdog Millionaire and The Last Samurai. The Last Emperor, excuse me. I'm sorry. I said The Last Samurai. Good Lord. The Last Emperor, the Bernardo Bertolucci movie that won Best Picture in '87. That's the one I want to compare this to, not the Tom Cruise one, no. Slumdog Millionaire kind of made me want to see The Last Emperor, because of just how both of these films felt very similar to one another. And these are two radically different movies. I think that The Last Emperor is an epic film that is using all the abilities of the camera works, of the abilities that they were able to use in filmmaking in '87 to make this grand, epic masterpiece of a film. And in this movie, they're using what they can, having it take place in India and all that, and they're doing a lot what they can do with it here, and they're great character studies. They're great aspiring journeys with this young kid from when he's a little boy to where he is at this movie. And you do root for him on. Like, you do root for him to go on this adventure and get the victory after everything he's gone through. There are parts of this movie that are very hard to watch, but it's one of those movies where it's worth it to get to that big moment at the end where everything just works out in the well for him. And this is a really good movie. This is a fantastic, fantastic film. The music by A.R. Rahman is perfect. It's so well done. The song Jai Ho is so well done. Not just in this movie, but the Pussycat Dolls literally did a song version of this, and surprisingly, it's pretty damn good too. I mean, it's hard not to get attached to this movie, man. This is just such a wonderful, wonderful movie. And I don't want to say it was the best of the 5 nominated Best Pictures, because Benjamin Button was in there, and we'll get to that one when we get to Christmas time, but it was really a 2-horse race for me that year between Benjamin Button and this movie, and if either one of these had won, I would have been more than happy with that, and I'm glad this won, because, yeah, it's a film that rightfully deserved to win. I think it's a very enjoyable film. It's a wonderfully put together movie, great acting, great storytelling. I mean, it's such a masterpiece of a movie, man. One of Danny Boyle's best films. Slumdog Millionaire, such a terrific, terrific film. Can't recommend this one enough. Definitely check it out. And so with all of that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and the next time we meet, we'll take a look at 2 more big holiday blockbusters, including Twilight, which of course stars Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart in the movie based off the Stephenie Meyer book, and also Disney's Bolt, the second animated feature under John Lasseter's tenure at the head of Walt Disney, and features John Travolta and Miley Cyrus among the cast in it, and was kind of the Oliver and Company to the equivalent to this third renaissance of Disney, I like to call it. But we'll delve more into that when we get to these movies. I'll get to them tomorrow on the show, so definitely be on the lookout for that. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and hit that playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, notification button, and the bell, because you get updates when new videos come out, and we do post new videos here every day. So, with all that said, I'm off. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.